My name is Walter Caldwell. I am 67 years old, and I just watched them lower my wife of 41 years into the cold Georgia clay. The graveside service was still going when my son-in-law touched my elbow. He didn't offer me a tissue or ask how I was holding up. He just leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear despite the November chill, and said, "Dad, we need to talk about the house tonight. There are some documents Carol wanted us to handle." I didn't answer him. I was watching the casket. Carol had been gone 11 days. A stroke, they said. Fast and quiet, the way she always wanted to go, though I never believed she actually wanted to go at all. She was 64. She still had a rosebush she hadn't finished planting. She still had a granddaughter she hadn't met yet. A baby due in the spring from her college roommate's daughter. A girl Carol had watched grow up and loved like her own. She wasn't finished. None of it made sense to me then, standing at that graveside in my good wool coat, and it would make even less sense before the week was out. My daughter and my son-in-law stood together across the grave from me, their arms linked. My daughter's eyes were dry. I noticed that. I told myself grief looked different on different people. I had been a high school principal for 22 years. I knew better than most that you couldn't read a person's insides from their outside. I kept telling myself that, right up until I couldn't anymore. After the burial, people came back to the house. The neighbors brought casseroles and pound cakes. Carol's sister drove up from Savannah and cried so hard she had to lie down in the guest room. My daughter moved through the gathering like a hostess at a dinner party, refilling glasses, accepting hugs, nodding at the right moments. My son-in-law stood in the kitchen doorway most of the afternoon, talking to no one, checking his phone. I sat in my armchair, the one Carol had always called ugly and I had always loved, and I watched my family move around me like I was furniture. It was nearly 7 in the evening when the call came. I almost didn't pick up. The number wasn't in my contacts, and I was exhausted in a way that went past tired, the kind of hollow that settles into your bones when you've used up every feeling you have. But something made me answer. "Walter." The voice was a woman's, steady and careful. "This is Patricia Odom." I was Carol's attorney. I sat up straighter. Carol had never mentioned a Patricia Odom to me. Carol handled her own finances. Always had. She'd been an estate paralegal for 18 years before she retired, and she understood that world in ways I never bothered to learn. I trusted her completely. She trusted me with everything else. "I'm sorry to call today of all days," the woman said. "I wouldn't if I didn't believe it was urgent. Walter, Carol came to see me about 6 weeks ago, privately. She asked me to reach out to you after she was gone." A pause. She was worried she might not have much time. My hand tightened around the phone. She knew? She suspected something was wrong with her health, yes. But that's not entirely why she came to me. Another pause. Longer this time. She came to me because she was afraid of what might happen to you after she was gone. She left something for you. A letter. And some other documents I think you need to see immediately. Her voice dropped. "Walter, please don't tell your daughter or your son-in-law about this call. I want to explain why when I see you. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning?" I looked across the living room at my daughter, who was laughing softly at something a neighbor had said, her hand pressed over her heart in that way she had. My son-in-law was still on his phone. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'll be there." I slept maybe 2 hours that night. My daughter and son-in-law stayed in the guest room, which had struck me as kind at first. They didn't want me to be alone, but somewhere around 2 in the morning, lying still in the dark, listening to the house, I began to wonder if kindness was actually the reason. At breakfast, my son-in-law set a folder on the kitchen table beside my coffee cup. It was thick, tabbed with color-coded sticky notes. Carol had been very organized about all of this, he said, sitting down across from me with the comfortable authority of a man who had decided this was his meeting. "She updated her will last year. She wanted things to be simple for you." "I didn't know she updated her will," I said. "She didn't want to stress you out. You know how she was, always protecting you." He smiled. "It's mostly standard stuff. There's a section about the house. She felt like the upkeep would be too much for you alone. She talked to us about transitioning you to something smaller, something easier to manage. A condo, maybe. Somewhere with a community. I looked at the folder. I did not touch it. She never said a word to me about a condo, I said. Dad. My daughter appeared in the kitchen doorway, her voice gentle in the particular way that means she has already decided she is right. You were dealing with so much while she was sick. She didn't want to add to it. She told us. She made us promise to help you transition. I picked up my coffee cup. Let me think about it, I said. My son-in-law's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The attorney's meeting is scheduled for Thursday. The sooner we handle the estate paperwork, the better, just to avoid any complications. Thursday, I said. That gives me a few days to think. He looked at my daughter. She looked back at him. Something moved between them in that glance, fast and private, the way fluent speakers of the same language can say whole sentences without making a sound. Of course, my daughter said, smiling again. Whatever you need, Dad. Patricia Odom's office was on the third floor of a brick building downtown. The kind of quiet, serious office where the carpet is thick and the diplomas on the wall are real. She was a small woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the careful stillness of someone who had spent decades listening to people in crisis without letting their panic become hers. She shook my hand, sat me down, and put a sealed envelope on the desk between us. Carol's handwriting was on the front. Just my name. Walter. She brought that to me herself, Patricia said. She asked me to make sure it came directly to you, not through the estate, not through your daughter. She was very specific about that. I stared at Carol's handwriting and felt the bottom drop out of my chest. Before you open it, Patricia said, I need to tell you some things, because that letter is going to raise questions, and I want you to have context. She folded her hands on the desk. Walter, I've been a trusts and estates attorney for 30 years. Carol came to me because she found something in your financial accounts that frightened her. She found it by accident. Actually, she was updating the beneficiary information on your retirement accounts and she noticed discrepancies. Withdrawals that didn't match any record she had. Transfers she didn't recognize. Something went very cold in my stomach. She had been the one managing your accounts, I said slowly. Yes. And someone had been accessing them using credentials that weren't hers. Someone with enough information to answer the security questions. Someone who knew your mother's maiden name. The street you grew up on. The name of your first dog. She paused. Someone close to the family. I thought about my son-in-law sitting at my kitchen table with that color-coded folder. I thought about how smoothly he had talked about the estate, about the house, about Carol's wishes. How fluent he sounded in a language I'd never learned. How much? I asked. She told me. It took me a moment to process the number. 11 years of retirement savings. The account I had contributed to every month since I was 35 years old. The account Carol and I had planned our future around the trips we hadn't taken yet. The grandchildren we were going to spoil. The years we thought we still had. Gone. Or nearly. She confronted him. Patricia said quietly, about 2 months before she died. She didn't tell you, because she was afraid of what it would do to you, and because she wasn't certain yet. She wanted proof first. She wanted to protect you. She paused. She also told me that after she confronted him, her health began to decline very rapidly. I looked up at her. What she wrote in that letter is her own account, Patricia said. But I want you to know, Walter, that I have already been in contact with someone who can help. A man named Douglas Reeves. He's a former federal investigator, private practice now, very good, very discreet. He's been doing some preliminary work at Carol's request. He's waiting in my conference room. I sat very still for a moment. Outside, through the window, I could see the street below, ordinary and bright in the November sun. People going about their Tuesday morning, as if the world were the same world it had been a month ago. Let me read my wife's letter first, I said. Carol's handwriting was careful, the way she always wrote when she was trying to control her emotions. She told me she loved me. She told me she was sorry she hadn't come to me directly, that she had been afraid of what it would do to me to learn what she had found, and afraid of what our son-in-law might do if he knew she had told me. She told me she had started feeling strange about 3 months after she confronted him. Dizzy. Exhausted in a way that wasn't like her blood pressure swinging wild. She wrote, I don't think I'm imagining it, Walter. I know what it sounds like. But I was healthy. I walked 3 miles every morning, and after I told him I knew, I started feeling like I was disappearing. She wrote, I want you to be careful with your coffee. I know how strange that sounds, but the mornings he's been staying over, when he brings you that cup before you're fully awake, please, Walter. Just be careful. She wrote, I love you. I love you. I have the whole time, and I always will. Don't let them take the house. Don't let them take what we built. And don't you dare think you're too old to fight. I folded the letter. I held it for a moment. Then I went into the conference room to meet Douglas Reeves. He was nothing like I expected. He was maybe 55, compact and quiet, wearing a gray sport coat and wire-rimmed glasses not unlike Patricia's. He looked more like an accountant than an investigator, which he explained was rather the point. Mr. Caldwell, he said, standing to shake my hand. I'm sorry about your wife. She was a sharp woman. She set this whole thing in motion herself. Everything we have. She's the one who put it together. What she had put together, laid out for me across Patricia Odom's conference table, was a detailed record of my own financial destruction. Douglas walked me through it with the patient precision of someone who knew the numbers by heart. The wire transfers, the forged authorizations, the loan taken out in my name against my home equity that I had never signed for, the insurance policy Carol had on her own life that named me as beneficiary, the same policy that would, upon my death, pass entirely to our daughter as our sole surviving heir who would inevitably share it with her husband. He needed the money fast, Douglas said. The business he's been running for the past 4 years has been bleeding cash. He owes close to $300,000 to private creditors. He needed a solution that didn't require him to ask for it or earn it. He was stealing from us for years, I said. It wasn't a question. Since before your daughter married him, we believe, Douglas said. Small amounts at first. He was testing what he could access. When your wife gave him power to manage some of your accounts out of convenience, to help you both, he took that as an opening. I thought about how that had come about. My son-in-law had offered to help. He was good with technology, comfortable with the online banking systems that I found confusing and Carol found tedious. We had both been grateful. We trusted him. He was family. Carol confronted him, I said. And then she got sick. Douglas was quiet for a moment. He looked at me steadily. Her stroke was documented as natural, and there's no evidence at this stage that it was anything other than that. I want to be honest with you about what we can and cannot prove. He paused. But I think you should know that in the weeks before she went to the hospital, she kept a journal. She logged what she was eating, how she was feeling, who had been in the house. She was methodical. She was building a record, just in case. He slid a photocopied notebook page across the table. She wrote this 9 days before she died. It was in Carol's handwriting. Tuesday. Kevin brought coffee again this morning. Both cups. Said he was being helpful. I didn't drink mine. Poured it down the bathroom sink after he left. Going to save a sample this time. Want Douglas to have it tested. Feel like I'm being paranoid. Also feel like I'm not. Kevin. My son-in-law's name. I put the page down very carefully. She saved a sample, I said. Douglas nodded. He pulled out a lab report. He slid it across to me without drama, without softening it. The results were on the second page. Elevated levels of digoxin, a heart medication, concentrated levels, far beyond what might occur accidentally. Enough, combined with Carol's existing mild hypertension, to produce exactly the kind of catastrophic cardiac event the doctors had attributed to her stroke. The room went completely silent, except for the distant sound of the street below. I had read about grief. I had lived inside it for 11 days. I thought I understood what it felt like to lose Carol. But this learning that she had not simply been taken from me, but that she had been pushed, this was a different country entirely. This was a place with no map. I sat there for a long time. Then I said, "What do we do?" Douglas and Patricia exchanged a glance. Patricia spoke first. "The evidence we have is strong," she said carefully. "But it has gaps. The lab report on its own is powerful, But a skilled defense attorney will argue contamination, will argue Carol could have taken digoxin herself, will create enough uncertainty that a jury might not convict. We need the direct link. We need to catch him actively doing it. And to do that, Douglas said, his voice even and matter-of-fact, we need a controlled situation. We need him to believe he has an opportunity. We need you to give it to him. I understood immediately. I was not a stupid man. I had spent 22 years watching teenagers try to get away with things, and I had learned very early to see the shape of a situation before it announced itself. You want me to go home, I said. Play the grieving, confused old man. Let him bring me the coffee. With two things in place, Douglas said. A recording device and a waiting police presence. The detective I've been working with, she's already seen the lab report. She's already angry. She just needs the final piece. Caught in the act. On video. Chain of custody. Airtight. He'll be suspicious, I said. I pushed back this morning on the paperwork. He knows I'm not as pliable as he expected. Then you apologize, Douglas said simply. You slept on it. You're 67 years old and you just buried your wife, and you've realized you can't do this alone. That's not a lie, Walter. That's just a smaller version of the truth. They'll believe it because they want to believe it. People like your son-in-law always underestimate people like you. That arrogance is their biggest vulnerability. I thought about Carol's letter. Don't you dare think you're too old to fight. Tell me the plan, I said. That night I went home and I told my son-in-law I was sorry for being resistant. I told him he was right, that the house was too big, the finances too complicated, that Carol had known me better than I knew myself, and if she trusted him to help manage things, then I should too. I watched his face while I said it. I watched the tension leave his shoulders in a slow wave. The way a man relaxes when the thing he's been gripping finally gives. My daughter hugged me. This is exactly what she would have wanted, she said into my shoulder. And I held my arms around her and I felt something break open in my chest that had nothing to do with the plan and everything to do with the fact that she was my daughter and I still could not believe she was part of this. And I had to know, had to find out how much she truly knew. I suggested a family dinner the next evening. A proper one, with the good dishes. A memorial for Carol. My son-in-law was enthusiastic. My daughter cried a little and said, yes, of course. And tomorrow morning, I said, looking at my son-in-law with all the helpless trust of a tired old man. I know this sounds silly, but Carol always made my coffee just a certain way. Would you mind making it in the morning? Just, I don't know. She taught you how she made it, didn't she? She was always teaching everyone how she did things. He was very still for just a fraction of a second. Then he smiled. Of course, Dad, he said. I'd be honored. I barely slept. But this time it was different from the grief insomnia of the past 11 days. This time it was focused. While I lay still in the dark, Douglas's team was in my house. Patricia had a key. Carol had given it to her 6 weeks ago, along with a copy of everything. They came in through the back while I took my son-in-law and daughter to a neighbor's house down the block to help carry back some of the casserole dishes the neighbors had left. 22 minutes. That was all the time Douglas said he needed. When we came back, the house looked exactly as we had left it, but the smoke detector above the kitchen stove had a new lens in it, almost imperceptible. The microwave clock had been replaced with an identical one that held a microphone. 2 streets over, in a white panel van with a plumbing company logo on the side, Douglas Reeves was watching a live feed. I sat in my armchair all evening. My daughter made tea. My son-in-law reviewed the folder with me, patient and explanatory, walking me through documents I pretended not to understand while understanding every word. At one point he said, you just sign here, here, and here, and it transfers management authority so we can handle everything for you. It's what Carol set up. I nodded. I picked up the pen. I held it over the paper. Can I sleep on it one more night? I asked. I want to wake up clear-headed. First thing tomorrow, after coffee. He smiled. He said, of course. He went to bed looking like a man who had already won. I sat in Carol's chair, not my armchair. Her chair. The small blue one she read in, and I talked to her in my head all night. I told her about Patricia, about Douglas, about the lab report and the notebook page, and the word digoxin printed in clean black type. I told her I was sorry I hadn't seen it. I told her I should have noticed the way she poured her coffee down the sink. I should have asked why she was careful. I should have been the one protecting her. She would have told me to stop it. She would have said I couldn't have known, and that what mattered now was what came next. 7:15 in the morning. My son-in-law came downstairs first, which I had counted on. He was a morning person. My daughter slept until 8:30 on weekends. I was already in the kitchen when he appeared, sitting at the table in my robe, looking older than I felt. "Morning," he said, with a warmth that might have fooled me 3 weeks ago. "Morning," I said. "Sleep okay?" "Fine, thanks." "You?" "Not really," I said, which was true. I kept thinking about Carol. I keep reaching for her in the night and she's not there. I looked down at my hands on the table. I don't know how to do mornings without her. He was already at the coffee machine. He had brought his own coffee. I had noticed a thermos he filled from a machine at the gas station. He said, "He only made mine." Carol's good dark roast, measured out the way she always did it. My daughter appeared in the doorway in her robe, hair loose, and said good morning, and he handed her a mug of her own from the second pot, a separate carafe, his own coffee. I watched him make mine. He turned away from me slightly to pour. His shoulder angle changed. His right hand dipped toward his pocket. He thought I was looking at my own hands. I was watching the reflection in the kitchen window. The small brown glass vial was out for less than 4 seconds. 1 tap, 2 taps. The fine pale powder dissolved before the coffee finished dripping. He poured it into my mug, the heavy blue one Carol had bought me for our 30th anniversary, because she knew I loved it, and she loved that I loved ordinary things, and he carried it to the table and set it in front of me with all the gentle care of a man who meant it. "There you go, Dad," he said. Just the way she made it. I wrapped my hands around the mug. I looked at it. My daughter was saying something about whether there was milk. I stood up too quickly, the mug catching the edge of my sleeve. Hot coffee splashing across the table and onto the floor. I grabbed for napkins, apologizing. Fussing old man. Clumsy. So sorry. What a mess. And in the confusion I managed to tip the mug over entirely, the rest of it soaking into the table runner Carol had embroidered herself. The blue and white one she made the winter. We were snowed in, and she said she needed something to do with her hands. My son-in-law was rigid. He was watching the mug lying on its side, as if it had personally betrayed him. "I'm so sorry," I kept saying. "I don't know why I'm so clumsy. I haven't been sleeping. I can't seem to. It's fine." His voice was clipped. He was already pulling paper towels from the roll. "Could you?" I looked up at him, and I let myself look exactly like what he believed I was. Tired. Old. Completely dependent. "Would you mind making another cup?" "I'm sorry. I just really need it this morning. I don't know how to start the day without—" "Yes," he said, cutting me off. "I'll make another one." He turned to the coffee machine. His hand went back to his pocket, and from 2 streets away, in that white panel van, Douglas Reeves said into his radio, "Now." The front door opened. The back door opened. The sound filled the kitchen so fast my son-in-law dropped the vial. It shattered on the tile, the remaining powder scattering across the floor, and my daughter screamed. And then the room was full of people in dark jackets with badges on chains and voices that commanded everyone to stay still and show their hands. My son-in-law ran. He made it 4 steps toward the back door before a detective twice his size stopped him with such efficient economy that it almost looked gentle. My daughter was saying, "What is this? What is this? What is this?" And a female detective in a gray jacket was beside her, calm and firm, saying, "Ma'am, I need you to come with me." And my daughter's face, I will see my daughter's face in that moment for the rest of my life. The confusion in it. And underneath the confusion, something else. Fear of a specific kind. The kind that knows exactly what it's afraid of. I stood at my kitchen table with Carol's ruined embroidered runner soaked with poison coffee, and I watched Douglas Reeves walk through my back door in his gray sport coat and collect the broken vial from the floor with a gloved hand and seal it into an evidence bag. He looked at my son-in-law, who was now still and silent against the wall with his hands behind his back, and he said, "Caught you twice, son." In your own father's kitchen. Then he looked at me. You did good, Walter, he said. The days that followed were loud and then very quiet. The local news got hold of it faster than anyone expected, and for about a week, I couldn't walk to my own mailbox without someone pointing a camera at me, which Carol would have found both appalling and secretly amusing. Patricia Odom handled everything official. She was the kind of woman who made large disasters feel manageable by the sheer force of her organization. My son-in-law's lawyer tried the financial fraud first, painting him as a man overwhelmed by debt who had made desperate choices but never intended to harm anyone. That position became considerably harder to maintain once the lab reports were introduced into evidence and the kitchen video was played in a courtroom where you could have heard a breath. My daughter cooperated fully with the investigation. I want to be honest about what that means and what it doesn't. It means she told them everything she knew, which turned out to be less than I feared and more than I hoped she had known about the financial problems. Had known money had been moved, had believed his explanations, had not known about the digoxin or about what the coffee was doing. The prosecutors believed her. I am still, every day, deciding what I believe. She is my daughter. She has her mother's eyes. I don't know how to stop loving someone just because they disappointed me, and I'm not sure I want to learn. He was convicted on 2 counts, fraud and financial elder abuse, which covers what he did to my accounts and the loan in my name, and a second charge that took longer for me to even say out loud because it required me to accept that the woman I had loved for 41 years had not simply had a stroke on an ordinary Tuesday morning. She had been helped toward it, carefully and patiently, by a man who sat at my table and called me Dad. The sentencing was 19 years. He stood and heard it, and his face did something I had never seen a face do before. It went simply blank, like a screen going dark, as if whatever had been running behind his eyes had finally been switched off. I walked out of the courthouse into November air that smelled like car exhaust and cold leaves, and Patricia Odom walked beside me and didn't say anything for half a block, which is what I needed from her. What happens now? I asked eventually. Now, she said. You go home. I did. My house looked different to me, still familiar, still mine, but changed in the way that places change when large things have happened inside them. The kitchen felt too bright. Carol's embroidered runner was gone. Someone had taken it for evidence, and I didn't ask for it back. But her rosebush was still there out the window, dormant under a thin layer of frost, the same rosebush she hadn't finished planting. I put on my coat, and I went outside and I finished planting it. It took me about an hour. My knees weren't happy about it, and my back had opinions I hadn't asked for. But I got it in the ground the way she would have done it, the way she had shown me twice, and I had only half paid attention to because I assumed she would always be there to show me again. I patted the soil flat with both hands and sat back on my heels and looked at it for a while. Carol used to say that the reason she married me was that I paid attention to the things that mattered and let the rest go. I told her that was a generous interpretation of what most people called stubbornness. She laughed and said most great qualities look like flaws until someone needs them. I didn't lose her the day she died. I didn't even lose her the day I learned what had been done to her. I carry her the way I carry 41 years of anything completely, in ways I'm not always aware of, in the shape of who I've become. But I'll tell you what she gave me in those final weeks of her life. What she did from a hospital bed and a lawyer's office and a journal she kept in secret while she was frightened and ill and running out of time. She gave me the truth. She protected me with the very last of herself, organized and precise and stubborn to the end. My Carol, who never left anything unfinished if she could help it. The rosebush will bloom in the spring. I've decided to stay in the house. Some people will tell you that when you get to a certain age, the world stops being your place in it. That you're too old to fight, too tired to matter, too slow to see what's happening around you. I was a high school principal for 22 years. I have watched generation after generation of young people make the mistake of confusing patience with weakness, quietness with confusion, gray hair with a dull mind. Don't make that mistake. Pay attention to what the people closest to you are doing when they think you're not watching. Read what you sign. Ask questions even when you're tired. And if someone who loves you leaves you a warning, even a strange one, even a frightening one, listen to it. My wife saved my life. She did it methodically, from a great distance. While she was dying, she set in motion everything that needed to happen, and she trusted me to finish it. The least I could do was show up. Do you believe someone can love you so much that they protect you even from across the greatest distance there is? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, please like and subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and not all of them end the way this one did.